Thank you so much, all of you, to recite it, all the chanting, particularly the foundation of all good qualities. Because in order to free from sufferings, in order to achieve only liberation, in order to achieve Buddhahood, in order to control our negative thoughts, it is very important to rely on the qualified guru. Therefore, everybody, not just follow the Dharma, we follow the Dharma seriously in order to be Buddha, in order to free from sufferings. Therefore, it is very important to have pure devotion to your gurus, the lineage gurus and the root gurus. And also, most of us, we are in Singapore. Singapore is one of the busy country, one of the most expensive country. So we are living in this country. Since we woke up until we sleeping, usually we have to be very busy, being so busy in order to survive. Survive yourself, survive for your families and your relatives. Still, you try to study Dharma, have been trying to practice Dharma, which is very meaningful. Particularly, it is very important, very meaningful to study about emptiness. In order to control our negative thoughts, we need to control ignorance. Therefore, we need to realize emptiness. In order to achieve liberation, so we don't need to practice bodhicitta. Still, we need to practice the wisdom, which is realize emptiness. In order to achieve Buddhahood, we need to practice the wisdom, which is realize emptiness with the bodhicitta. In order to achieve Buddhahood, the fully enlightened state, the complete Buddhahood, very swiftly, very quickly, then we need to practice the Vajrayana or Tantra Yan, the Vajrayana vehicle. Whatever you wish to practice for liberation, practice for achieving Buddhahood through only Sutrayan with the Vajrayana, still we need to realize emptiness. Also, in order to control our negative thoughts, in order to reduce our negative thoughts, also we need to realize emptiness. If we have some understanding of the concept of emptiness, first, not easy to generate negative thoughts. Once we generated negative thoughts, so easy to purify all the negative thoughts. Also, when we reflect, make a reflection on emptiness for a few times, it helps us to accumulate great amount of merits. When we do few reflection on emptiness, also it can help us to reduce, control the ignorance. Many people believe, also many people say it is not easy to realize emptiness. It is easy, much more easy to practice great compassion and love. It is not true. So when we practice compassion, we can have great compassion, pure compassion towards somebody. It's so difficult to have a compassion mind towards someone. Today we have compassion, love, tolerance towards all sentient beings. Tomorrow we cannot. Morning we can practice compassion equally towards all sentient beings. Afternoon we cannot because of the anger, because of the discrimination. Understanding bodhicitta, compassion, is very easy to understand, but not easy to practice. Understanding emptiness is a bit difficult. Once you realize emptiness, once you realize, since you can realize the emptiness forever. In the morning, when you realized emptiness, then the thoughts which realize emptiness always with you. Therefore, at the beginning, we should not think, I cannot realize emptiness. You must think, have a strong aspiration, strong desire to realize emptiness. In order to realize emptiness, then you can do recitation, chanting, particularly, prostration, offering mandala to the field of merit, particularly your gurus. For example, Lama Tsongkhapa, when he was extensively studying Madhyamaka teaching, particularly he was putting a lot of efforts for realizing emptiness. Somehow he has a lot of difficulties for realizing emptiness. Then what Manjushri told him, you must do the two practices unionly, which is accumulating merit, purifying negative karmas. Therefore, we always combine two practices together, unionly, in order to realize emptiness. In order to realize emptiness, first, we need to know, we need to identify the negation, which is we need to negate. First, we need to identify the negation. Without identification of the emptiness, without knowing what does mean the negation, then we cannot negate the negation. Without identifying the negation, we try to negate the negation, we can have a lot of misunderstanding, misperception. So at the beginning, I'll do the short revision, what we studied in last Saturday. So if you want to open, you can open. If you don't, you just listen. I will go through the revision through the Lamrim. Why the object of negation must be carefully identified. Then, in order to be sure that a certain person is not present, you must know the absent person. Right? Before we say someone is absent in class, we must know the absent person. Otherwise, we cannot say someone is absent. Likewise, in order to be certain of the meaning of selflessness or the lack of intrinsic existence. I mean here, the selflessness, lack of intrinsic existence is same meaning. Also self, intrinsic existence are same meaning. Selflessness or the lack of intrinsic existence, you must carefully identify the self or intrinsic existence. That means these two are synonymous. You must carefully identify the self or intrinsic nature that does not exist. That means the self, the intrinsic existence or intrinsic nature that does not exist. Self does not exist, intrinsic nature does not exist. 4, if you do not have clear concept of object to be negated, you will also not have accurate knowledge of its negation. Therefore, it is very, very important to identify the negation which is we need to negate. If there's a little misunderstanding about negation, they will never realize the accurate, the meaning of emptiness. Then there's a quotation from Shantideva. Without contacting the entity that is inputted, you will not apprehend the absence of that entity. So without contacting means without identify, without knowing the entity. Entity here referred to the self, referred to the intrinsic nature. Therefore, the self, intrinsic nature are inputted. They just, input it, but they don't exist. You will not apprehend the absence of the self, absence of the intrinsic nature. So here, very simply, first you think, I want to know emptiness. I want to realize emptiness because the emptiness is very important practice. Because without realizing emptiness, I cannot cut the root of the samsara. Without realizing emptiness, I cannot achieve liberation. I cannot achieve Buddhahood. I cannot fully control all the negative thoughts. Therefore, I need to realize emptiness. In order to realize emptiness, first I need to know the negation, which is I need to negate. The negation here, self, intrinsic existence, are the negation we need to negate. Therefore, we must have a clear, the right understanding of the meaning of the self, the meaning of the intrinsic existence. Because we need to negate them. Second paragraph, there's a limitless diversity among objects of negation. Because there's a limitless diversity among objects of negation. Because there are diversity of phenomena. There's a millions of phenomena, therefore there are millions of negation. So if you need to negate the negation, each of the phenomena, we don't have enough time to practice emptiness. For example, first you negate the negation on the walls, then pillar, then house, then car, cup, pen, pencil. It takes almost few millions to negate the negation. So we should not negate the negation on each of the phenomena. But they came together at the root. When you refute this, you refute all object of negation. That means all negation we can put into only two: negation of the being, negation of the phenomenon. Being, the human being, sentient being, who has the feeling. That means negation of the phenomena, negation of the being or person. So when you negate, the negation on the phenomena, general phenomena, then indirectly you're able to negate negation rest of the phenomena. When you negate the negation based on self, I, then indirectly you will negate the negation on the five aggregates. Also, you're able to negate the negation on all beings. Therefore, all the negation you put into like two categories, then negate them. Moreover, if you leave some remainder, so when you negate the negation, we need to negate the negation completely. Completely. If something very little bit remain, then you cannot realize emptiness. When you clean, the container which has a poison, you must clean the container thoroughly. make sure, yes, there's a little bit poison still remaining on the container. For example, when you negate the negation based on the being, you need to negate. You need to negate the negation thoroughly, completely. If something remainder, then failing into refute the deepest and most subtle cause of the object of negation, then you will fall into extreme of true existence. This is very important. Please always remember, when I negate the negation, I must negate the negation totally, completely. Nothing can be remain. Right? Remain. If little bit remain, that means your mind is still fall into one of the extreme, which is extreme of true existence. You will cling to the idea of real thing. So you negate the 99% or 99.99. You already negate. Still, there's little bit remaining, which is 99.9 negate. That means 0.1 still remain there. That means your mind still can clinging on the truly existent. For example, you have a very important, phenomena, like a very expensive piece of clothes, expensive clothes. Somebody burn 99%. Still, when you see the small piece of the expensive clothes, you still have a attachment. You still clinging the expensive clothes. When somebody totally burn, all clothes, not remaining little piece, then you don't have any mind to clinging the clothes. All clothes is finished. You will cling to the idea of real thing, whereby you will not be able to escape second existence. Then your mind is still attached to the real thing. Therefore, you cannot be free from samsara because your mind is still attached to the concept, the idea of the real thing. If you fail to limit the object of negation and overextend your refutation, so when we negate the negation, we must have a limit. That means I must negate this. I should not negate everything. We must have a limit. If you negate, if you fall to limit the object of negation and overextend, then you refute your refutation, extend your refutation, then you will lose confidence in causal progression of depending arising, thereby feeling to nihilistic esteem. So when you negate the negation, you must know the limit, how much, which one I must negate. Right? If you fall to limit the negation, then you negate everything. Then you say no karma, no next life, no Buddha, then you totally fall into nihilistic. Then what happened? This nihilistic view will lead you to rebirth in a miserable realms. Therefore, it is crucial to identify the object of negation carefully. For if it is not identified, you will certainly develop either a nihilistic view or eternalistic view. Right? Therefore, very simple way you should think. This is so important to identify very carefully the negation. If I'm not able to identify the negation perfectly, rightly, then I cannot realize the the meaning of emptiness. Also, I fall into either one of the two extremes. Therefore, it is so important to identify carefully the negation. Then many masters in Tibet, they refute the negation without identifying the negation. Therefore, they said refuting an overly broad identification of the object to be negated. Refuting an overly restricted identification of object to be negated. Many masters say there's such as nothing exists. They totally negate everything. Then some masters thought it is not correct way to say all phenomena non-exist. That means among the phenomena, something exists, something not exists. Therefore, there's a true kind of idea in the ancient time in Tibet. There's a reason, they have a few reasons to say like that. Page number 126. Starting other assertion, most of those who today claim to teach the meaning of Madhyamaka, meaning of emptiness is same. Madhyamaka, emptiness is same meaning here. Say that all phenomena ranging from forms through omniscient consciousness are refuted by rational analysis of whatever production and such as exists as their own reality. This means many of the Tibetan masters said, from the form all the way to omniscient consciousness, everything, we need to refute. Because when we use the rational analysis, none of the phenomena can stand with the rational analysis. For when reason analyze anything that is put forward, there is no even particle that can withstand analysis. So they did totally destroyed the dependent arising, destroyed the conventional phenomena. For example, for them, if I say this is a pen, this is an existent phenomena, they say which one is pen? The top, the center, the below, the cap, in. They analyze, piece by piece, pass by pass. Then yes, we can see we cannot find the pen. Therefore, they said the pen does not exist. Because when we analyze, the pen cannot stand with rational analysis. Reason number one. Reason number two, also, all four possible where there's something could be produced as an existent effect non-existent effect, and fourth, so forth are refuted, and there is nothing, there is no include in this feature. Second reason, they said none of the phenomena can be existent, because if they exist, then have to exist safely, exist depending on other, exist dependent on causeless, exist safely, exist depend on other, exist depend on both, exist causelessly. So they say if something existent, then there must be exist within the four possibility. This is the second reason. Third reason, reason number 3. Moreover, these persons assert that a noble being's sublime wisdom which perceive reality. That means the noble being wisdom perceive the reality, the true. Then when the noble being's sublime wisdom, which is perceive reality, perceives production, perceives cessation, perceives bondage, freedom, and so forth as not exist in the list. This with the noble being sublime wisdom realize only emptiness, only realize the truth. They never, the wisdom, the noble beings, the sublime wisdom, never perceive arising, production, cessation. Therefore, those are not existent, because those are not perceived by the noble being, sublime wisdom. Therefore, since things must be just as this sublime wisdom knows, then production such as do not exist. And everything must be as perceived by the noble being wisdom. Therefore, emptiness is exist because the emptiness perceived by the noble being wisdom. Arising, cessation, bondage, freedom, those are not perceived by the noble beings, the sublime wisdom. Therefore, those are not exist. Therefore, since things must be just as this sublime wisdom knows, therefore production and such as do not exist. This is reason number 3. Reason number 4. When we assert the production and such as do exist, right? They were saying, if we say production do exist, then they ask question. This person asks, are these capable of withstanding rational analysis of the reality? If so, then would be thing that can be withstand rational analysis, and thus there would be truly existent thing. They ask us question, if you say production is exist, then is the production can standing with the rational analysis or not? Then they're withstanding rational analysis of their reality. And then we say, yes, the production can be stand with the rational analysis. If so, then there would be thing that can withstand rational analysis, and thus then there would be truly existent things. If you say the production can be stand with rational analysis, then you have to assert, you have to omit truly existent phenomena exists. Then you have to say self, inherent existent, independent existent phenomena are exist because they can withstand with the rational analysis. Second, if not, right? What if not mean? The production, cannot capable of withstanding rational analysis. If not, then how is it possible for something that has been rationally refuted to exist? If you say the production, let's say all the conventional phenomena are exist, then they can be stand with the rational analysis or not. If they can stand, able to stand with the rational analysis, then you have to omit, you have to say truly existent phenomena exist, self-existent, inherent existent, independent existent, you have to omit. If the conventional phenomena cannot stand with rational analysis, then how you can say they are exist? Because they refute it. They can refute by rational analysis. If not, then how is it possible for something that has been rationally refuted still exist? Right? So this is the argument. Then next reason, similarly, they say conventional phenomena are not exist because they can be refuted by rational analysis. All the conventional phenomena not exist because the noble being, sublime wisdom cannot apprehend the conventional phenomena. Therefore, conventional phenomena no exist. Reason number 3, if conventional phenomena exists, then the conventional phenomena can able to standing with the rational analysis or not. If the conventional phenomena can be standing with the rational analysis, then you have, they were saying, you have to omit, you have to assert truly existent phenomena exist. Truly existent phenomena exist. If the conventional phenomena cannot stand with the rational analysis, mean the conventional phenomena can be refuted by rational analysis. Then how you can say they still exist? The next, similarly, when we hold that production and such as exists, the person asks, the previous Tibetan master asks, does valid cognition establish them? If you assert conventional phenomena exist, production exists, the conventional phenomena, are they established by the valid cognition or not? Does valid cognition establish production, establish conventional phenomena or not? There's a question. Then, if we claim that is thus, mean the conventional phenomena production are established by the valid cognition? They reply that since the sublime wisdom perceiving reality, perceiving production as non-exist, that means the conventional phenomena established by the valid cognition, which valid cognition are you talking about? If you're talking about the noble beings, the sublime wisdom, that the noble beings, the sublime, the wisdom only perceive emptiness, not production, not conventional phenomena. Therefore, production, conventional phenomena are not established by the noble beings, the sublime wisdom. Second, you can see here, it is impossible for that wisdom perceive production and as non-existent. It is impossible for that wisdom to establish production. Therefore, the production is impossible to establish by the noble beings, the sublime wisdom. Further, if we argue that production is established by conventional visual consciousness, such as they reply that it is impossible for such as conventional consciousness to be valid cognition. If we say yes, the conventional phenomena or production are not established by the noble being sublime wisdom, but established by the conventional consciousness. That the established by the conventional visual consciousness, and such as they reply that it is impossible for such as conventional consciousness to be valid cognition. Then they have a quotation here. Established production because scriptural resources refute the claim that thus conventional consciousness are valid consciousness, valid cognition. They quoted from one of the sutra, King of the Concentration Sutra says, the eyes, ear, and nose consciousness are not valid cognition. The tongue, body, and mental consciousness are also not valid cognition. If this sensory consciousness were valid cognition, what use to anyone would be noble being part B? That means here there's a lot of words, symbolically you want you to think. If the conventional phenomena include production exists, then they ask a question, are they established by the valid cognition or not? Then we say yes, the conventional phenomena include production are established by the valid cognition. Then which valid cognition? The noble beings, the sublime wisdom, or the conventional visual consciousness, which valid cognition are talking about. Because the noble beings, the sublime wisdom, cognize, perceive, apprehend only emptiness, not any of the conventional phenomena. Therefore, all the conventional phenomena, none of the conventional phenomena can be established by the noble being wisdom. Clear? The second, yes, the conventional phenomena are not established by the noble beings, the sublime wisdom, but is established by the conventional visual consciousness, right, like air, nose consciousness, then they say no, those are not valid cognition because says by Buddha. Therefore, they have a few reasons to refute the conventional phenomena exist. So this I thought we should know why they said. Second, we just move to page number 129. So next, page number 28, rest of the sentences you can read. So now we start the new lessons, 129. Showing that those assertions are wrong. What are the assertions? Refuting an overly broad identification of object to be negated. Refuting overly restricted identification of object. I mean, they say in all the conventional phenomena not existent, they refute by rational analysis. Those are not established by the valid cognition, therefore those are not exist. These are their standpoint, their view. And Lama Tsongkhapa says he wants to show, he wants to, prove those master assertion are wrong. There's a two paths showing that those systems contradict the unique feature of Madhyamaka, showing that the Madhyamaka critique does not eradicate conventional existence. So the second part, I think I have a doubt. We must say showing that the Madhyamaka, the view, the critique actually cannot. So this I will talk next time. This I think little doubt the translation. Number one, showing that those system mean the previous mini Tibetan master says all the conventional phenomena are not exist. They just appear to us. In the reality, none of them exist. The house, the cars, the body, life, samsara, they totally refute all conventional phenomena. So this system is wrong. And this system contradicts a unique feature of the Madhyamaka. Now today we mainly study what is the unique feature of the Madhyamaka. It is a three parts. Identifying the distinguishing feature of the Madhyamaka, showing that those systems contradict this distinguishing feature. How a Madhyamaka respond to those who negate the distinguishing feature of the Madhyamaka. That means first we need to know the distinguishing feature of the Madhyamaka, and those, the previous many Tibetan master, the system contradict with the distinguishing feature in the Madhyamaka, and how a Madhyamaka respond to the previous Indian Tibetan masters. Next, identifying the distinguishing feature of the Madhyamaka. So please read the sentence few times, try to memorize. This sentence is very important. Read few times in English, in Chinese, or in Tibetan. Also, you can repeat few times for tomorrow, and you can memorize this stanza, because these 4 lines actually explained the whole the Mahayana practices, how we must achieve Buddhahood. What are the methods to achieve Buddhahood? Therefore, through these virtues, you never say through virtues, through these virtue, may all beings amass the collection of merit and wisdom. Collection of merit and wisdom. There's 2 kinds of merits, 2 kinds of collections, which is merit and wisdom. And attain the true, sublime embodiments that arise from merit and wisdom. Through these virtues, may all beings amass the collection of merits and wisdom and attain the true sublime embodiment that arise from merit and wisdom. So first they're talking about the true amass the collections of merit and wisdom. There's been 2 kinds of sambara, Sanskrit they go sambara, collection of merit and wisdom. Through these 2 collections, which is merit and wisdom, we're going to attend the sublime embodiments, true embodiment, and the Rupakaya, because Dharmakaya and Rupakaya. Sometimes a Rupakaya, sometimes you can hear Rupkaya, Rupa. It depends on the person. Attend the true sublime embodiment. Now, how we can have the 2 collections, then that arise from the merit and wisdom. Very important. There are always the 2. First, the true truth, conventional truth, ultimate truth. Then there's 2 kinds of wisdom. One, the wisdom which realizes the conventional truth. Other one, the wisdom which realizes emptiness. True truth, 2 kinds of wisdom. Due to 2 kinds of wisdom, that there are 2 kinds of collection of merits. Due to the 2 kinds of merit, they will attain the 2 kinds of attainment, Rupakaya and Dharmakaya. So when we wish to be Buddha, we need to remember the 2 things very important. One, the Rupakaya means the actual Buddha's form, the body. Right now we have a body. Same, wish to achieve the embodiment of the Buddha body. Second, the Dharmakaya, true embodiment means the omniscient and the cessation, or the fully complete nirvana. Those are the Dharmakaya. So why we need to achieve the 2 kinds of kayas? Because this body is made of flesh and bones. This body is the basis to arise, to develop, all kinds of sufferings and problems. Because this day we have COVID, the virus problem is affect our body, not our mind. Due to that, now you can see in the whole world facing a lot of problem because of the COVID. The COVID affect our human like a body, not the cars, not the house, not the water, not the environment. Therefore, we don't want this kind of body. We want the pure body, which is similar as a permanent. I'm not going to say permanent, but it's similar with a permanent. This Buddha body must arise from one of the collection, which is the merits. Second, if we just achieve the pure Buddha's body, very pure body, no sickness, no aging, no death, always be youthful. If we have this kind of body, we cannot benefit many sentient beings. Also, we ourselves cannot be free from the negative thoughts. We have a wonderful body, but we cannot benefit all sentient beings because we haven't achieved the omniscience. Also, we achieve, the wonderful body, but our mind is still not free from the ignorance. Therefore, we need to achieve the second, which is Dharmakaya, not only Rupkaya or Rupakaya, Dharmakayas. These two kayas can be achieved when we practice the two kinds of wisdom. So when we practice two kinds of wisdom, then we can accumulate two kinds of collection, the merits. Two kinds of wisdom we can be practiced when we realize the two truths. The truth, there's a two truths, therefore there's a two kinds of wisdom. There are two kinds of wisdom, therefore there are two kinds of accumulation, collection, merit and wisdom. There are two kinds of merits, two kinds of wisdom, therefore we can achieve the two kinds of embodiment. Right now you can see the order, very important. Next, what this means in the sentence. The disciples who progress by way of the Supreme Mahayana vehicle will attain upon reaching their goal, both the sublime embodiment of the truth, mean the Dharmakaya, and the sublime wisdom meant embodiment of the form. Right? This attainment is explained earlier, because earlier there's a question, what is the nirvana? What is the mean to achieve nirvana? That time, Lama Tsongkhapa already explained very clearly the two kinds of embodiments. So when you think, when you remember, when you reflect the answer, what is the nirvana? Mean the mind totally free from ignorance, free emotions, and free from the mental, the latent mental disposition. Not only that, the mind is totally free from the truly existent appearances. Right? That means wish to achieve nirvana is also emptiness of the mind. The methods which is able to achieve liberation or Buddhahood, also emptiness of the mind. Therefore, when we realize emptiness of the mind, Then we meditate on the emptiness of the mind for many years. Slowly the mind, the emptiness of the mind is totally free from ignorance, free from the latent mental disposition, totally free from the appearance of truly existence. Then you achieve liberation, Buddhahood, you achieve two kinds of kayas. Right? Therefore, this is already mentioned here, explained earlier. Based on this, having amassed along the path immeasurable collection of merits and the sublime wisdom, collection within which methods and wisdom are inseparable. That means two kinds of merit we have to accumulate. In order to accumulate the two kinds of merit, the merit and wisdom, we need to practice the two wisdom without separately. Wisdom are inseparable, that in turn definitely relies upon the attaining the certain knowledge of the diversity of phenomena, mean the certain knowledge of the conventional phenomena. Because all the conventional, we named conventional phenomena, the diversity of phenomena. When we look at the conventional phenomena, you can see so many differences. Each of the phenomena has a different feature. The books, the pen, pencil, house, car, you can see there's so many differences there. Based on the conventional level, there's so many diversity. Based on the ultimate level, all phenomena has a same, feature. There's no much, diversity. So once more here, in the base on this, they are having amassed along with the path immeasurable collection of merit and sublime wisdom, collection within which methods and wisdom are inseparable. Therefore, the true wisdom must practice together, unanimously. That in turn definitely relies upon attaining certain knowledge of the diversity of phenomena or certain knowledge of the conventional phenomena. A profound knowledge understands the relationship of the cause and effect. Is such as that specific beneficial and harmful effect arise from specific cause. So how we must have the profound knowledge about conventional phenomena. Therefore here say, this profound knowledge understands that the relationship, cause and effect, very important, relationship, cause and effect, such as this specific beneficial and harmful effect arise from specific causes. Therefore, many people very interested to realize emptiness. They are very much interested in having the wisdom which realize emptiness. They think the wisdom which is realized the conventional phenomena are not important. This is totally wrong. One of the Tibetan masters said, you never, you never look at close and distant between the two truths. Oh, emptiness is very important. You have a very close feeling. Oh, conventional phenomena are not important. You have a distant feeling. No. Therefore, you should not really, have a distance between the two truths. true truth, you always need to look exactly same way, right? Then how we should have a profound knowledge about conventional phenomena. For example, yes, we can see this book. We understood this book. This is a book. Everybody knows this is a book. Everybody knows this is a pen. Everybody knows there's a car. It doesn't mean we realize conventional truth. We apprehend this book, it doesn't mean we realize the conventional phenomena. No. So, in order to realize the conventional phenomena, we have to reflect of cause and effect. Cause and effect. The relationship between cause and effect. Why many people, even though many Buddhist people, they don't care about engaging into negative action. They don't care stealing, lying, deceiving, killing, bullying. Why they don't care? They consider themselves a Buddhist, which is very good. You consider yourself Buddhist, but they don't, they don't really care, they have been doing all the bad things because they don't understand the conventional phenomena. Mean the relationship between cause and effect. The relationship between external cause and effect, the relationship between, the internal cause and effect. That means very specific cause produce specific result. For example, the negative action produce negative result. The positive action, the positive cause produce positive effect. So you must have a very deep understanding about the relationship between cause and effect. Specific cause produce specific result. Therefore, the suffering, the physical sufferings, the mental suffering, the external sufferings, all sufferings produced by the negative causes. If you don't want sufferings, you should not have a negative cause. You want happiness, the happiness produced by very specific cause, which is the positive. You want happiness, or you want to be happy, always engage into positive actions. Right? If you have a very strong conviction about, the bad karma produce bad result, positive karma produce positive result, then you really believe, seriously you are believe, then you totally going to stop, engage into negative action, the negative verbal action, negative physical action, negative mental action. We've been Buddhists, being a Buddhist for many years, we do a lot of chanting, recitation, we read a lot of Dharma books, but our action always have a act in the negative way. Because we don't have a strong conviction, the negative cause, negative result, positive cause, positive result. Therefore, we need profound, deep understanding about the relationship between cause and effect. Once you have a deep understanding, conviction about the cause and effect, then you are very careful about the causes and condition. You always make sure you always do the positive action, always accumulate the positive thing. Always try to, distant from the negative things, because the negative is very dangerous. This means in order to have a profound knowledge about conventional phenomena, we need deeper understanding about cause and effect, the relationship with cause and effect. Therefore, many times I said in the class, so when we grow flower, we know if we add a lot of water, then the flower going to spoil. Also, we know if we don't add water on the plant, the flower, also we know the flower going to explode, going to spoil, going to dry. But we don't really believe. Usually, we always add, let's say, 10 spoons of water on the plant. 10 spoons every day, only 10 spoons of water we add the plant. Then you think, I don't think it's different. It does make difference. If I add only 9 spoons of water, today you add 9 spoons of water, but we cannot see the effect. Not adding 10 spoons, you only add 10 spoons of water. We cannot see the effect. Once you add 9 spoons, there's an effect. Effect is there, we don't see. If we add, usually you add 10 spoons of water. Next, you add 11 spoons of water. You think, it doesn't make any difference. Actually, it does. Same way, when we do, the positive action, we think, little bit is okay. It doesn't get, get much difference. Yes, it does. Therefore, we really need deep understanding of the relationship. Specific cause produce specific result. Then you will have the wisdom which realizes the conventional truth. In order to have the wisdom which realizes conventional truth, first we need to realize ultimate truth. The gross, when you understand the law of relationship between law and causality, you have a gross understanding of the conventional phenomena. Gross level, but you don't have the perfect knowledge which realizes conventional truth, because you need to know the ultimate truth. Therefore, here, at the same time, amassing the collection of the merit and wisdom also definitely relies on the attaining certain knowledge of the real nature of the phenomena. This means reaching the profound certainty that all phenomena lack even particle of the essential or intrinsic nature. Certain knowledge of the both the diversity and the real nature is needed because without them, it is impossible to practice the whole path, both methods and wisdom, from the depths of your heart, right? So, in order to practice the wisdom and methods unanimely, we need to realize the conventional phenomena and the ultimate phenomena. In order to realize the ultimate phenomena, we need to realize the lack of essential, lack of intrinsic nature. In order to realize conventional phenomena, we need to realize the relationship between cause and effect, particularly specific cause and specific result. Otherwise, impossible to practice the whole path, both methods and wisdom from the depth of your heart. This is a key true path that lead to attainment of the two embodiments when the result is reached. Whether you get it right depends on how you establish your philosophical view of the basic situation. The way to establish view is to reach the certain knowledge of the true truth, as I have just explained. Except for Madhyamaka, other people do not understand how to explain this true truth as non-contradictory. Therefore, only Madhyamaka's person can explain. There's no contradictory between confessional truth and ultimate truth. Means there's no contradictory, lack of intrinsic existence, arising result. Clear? There's no contradiction between lack of intrinsic existence, mean there's no contradictory between emptiness, all phenomena, or lack of empty of existence, lack of intrinsic existence, empty of existence, and arising result. There's no contradiction. Only Madhyamaka can explain there's no contradiction between emptiness and accepting the conventional phenomena. There's no contradiction. Madhyamakas, other people do not understand how to explain this true truth as non-contradictory. They see them as a mass of contradiction. In a one hand, you believe in cause and effect. On the other hand, you believe in emptiness. For the rest of the lower proponent, they cannot explain how is possible. In a one hand, you are talking about emptiness. On the other hand, you are talking about cause and effect. For them, emptiness means totally empty. No. Empty means empty of intrinsic existence, empty of essential. So they cannot understand in a one way. They believe in empty of intrinsic existence, empty of essential. On the other hand, they accept the law, cause and effect. Only Madhyamaka can explain. How to explain these two truths are non-contradictory. They see them as a mass of contradiction. However, experts possess of subtlety, wisdom, and vast intelligence have used their mastery of technique for knowing the true truths to establish them without even slightest trace of contradiction. In this way, they reach the final meanings of the course of the thought. The course with the conqueror's thought. Even though slightest trace of contradiction, in this way, they reach the final meaning of what the conqueror's thought, which is emptiness. This gives them wonderful sense of respect for our teacher. Teacher referred to Buddha Shakyamuni. Give them a wonderful sense of respect for our teacher and his teaching. Out of respect, they speak with utter sincerity, raising their voice again and again. You who are wise, the meaning of emptiness of the inexistent. Therefore, this you can see the two words is very important again. They give them a wonderful sense of respect for the teacher and the teaching. right? Of course, all the religious tradition, everybody told, oh, as a Christian, they have a, great respect to the Jesus Christ, great respect to the God. The Muslim, they have a great respect to the Muhammad Mustafa, not the Mustafa Center, okay? Muhammad Mustafa and the Allah. Hindu has a great respect to their own, like a God and Bhagavan. If I ask you, do you respect Buddha as a Buddhist? Yes, everybody says yes. I really respect. I have a great respect to the Buddha as well his teaching. Why you have a respect to the Buddha? Why you need to respect? You will say because he is a Buddha. These are not the correct way to say. For example, when you need a doctor, somehow you are searching, you are looking a very good doctor. One day you met the perfect famous doctor. Then you really respect to the doctor. If somebody asks why you respect to this doctor, if you say because he is a doctor, not good reason. Not good reason. You must say, I really respect him or her because he explained me how to cure my sickness. He gave me the right prescription for me to cure my sickness. Therefore, I really respect him. Without him, I cannot survive. Same way, if I ask, do you respect Buddha? Yes, I very much respect Buddha. Very much respect to Buddha Shakyamuni. Why do you respect Buddha Shakyamuni? If you say he's a Buddha, no good reason. Then you must say, I have very much respect to Buddha because he shows me, he introduced me how to free from suffering, how to free from the ignorance. I can be free from ignorance because he explained me to realize emptiness. When I think about emptiness, for me sense. If I realize emptiness, I can stop ignorance, then I can free from suffering, I can achieve Buddhahood. Therefore, our respect to the Buddha, respect to the teaching must come from that way. Why Buddha teaching is so important? Do you respect Buddha teaching, Buddha's teaching? Yes, I respect. Why? Because taught by Buddha. No, because this teaching, the teaching taught by Buddha is the very important teaching how to achieve ultimate happiness, how to achieve the lasting, everlasting happiness, how to free from sufferings and problems. Therefore, I very much respect to Buddha teaching, not because taught by Buddha. Right? Therefore, here, therefore, Nagarjuna, when he preached to Buddha Shakyamuni, he never say you are very compassionate, or you are a Buddha, you have omniscience, you have all the good qualities. No, he said, I respect you because your teaching is so unique. Because you taught dependent arising, you taught dependent origination, you taught emptiness. This is very uniqueness compared with other teacher. Right? Therefore, when you respect to Buddha, you should not just think, oh, he's a Buddha. You must say, I really respect. I offer things to you because you show me how to be happy. You shows me how to achieve happiness. You show me how to reduce my anger, attachment, desire. You show me how to free from samsara. And then you can have a respect to the teachings, right? This is very important. Then here, another few things important I thought should explain today. Okay, we have another, I think, 20 minutes. Concord thought, they give them a wonderful sense of respect for our teacher Buddha Shakyamuni and his teaching. Out of the respect, they speak with utter sincerity, right? Sincerity, arousing their voice again and again. You who are wise, the meaning of emptiness. Emptiness of intrinsic existence. There's a, extra words. What does mean emptiness? Emptiness of intrinsic existence. Emptiness of independent entity. Right? Emptiness always doesn't mean empty of something. Emptiness of the interdistant. Emptiness is dependent arising. Emptiness means dependent arising. Dependent arising means emptiness. It does not mean, and what it does not mean emptiness mean, it does not mean things do not exist. When you say all phenomena, their nature is emptiness, doesn't mean those are not existent, not exist. It doesn't mean that they are empty of the capacity to function. Right? What does it mean emptiness? Emptiness of intrinsic existence. Emptiness of independent entity. That means emptiness means dependent arising. Dependent arising means emptiness. This is, there's a, synonymous. So when you open, many of the Madhyamakas teaching, there's always you can see emptiness means dependent arising means emptiness. Therefore, we need to know what does mean. First, emptiness means emptiness of inherent existence. Empty of independent entity, empty. So here another, I think, important thing. For example, what is this? This is a glass, it's empty. Empty of, now it's not empty, right? Then I pour water. Now the glass is not empty. It has something in it. Therefore, the empty of the cup, the liquids, the water, both is existent, both is exists. The empty cup is there, the water is there. When you say the cup is empty of this water, I mean this water is not in it. It doesn't have the water. Actually, the empty of the empty cup, the water, both are exist. When you say, oh, the cup is empty of water, means there's no water, right? This is one. Second, when we say this cup is empty of intrinsic existence, mean the cup itself cannot exist intrinsically. The cup, the glass itself cannot exist inherently, cannot exist independently. That means this cup is lack of intrinsic existence. Means the cup itself not existent phenomena. Sorry, the cup itself not exist inherently. This cup does not exist independently. It exists dependently. Right? That's why you need to know What does mean empty? How to empty? Right? Please keep in your mind. Second, when we say emptiness mean dependent arising, dependent as an emptiness mean how the thing empty of inherent existence. Mean the cup not exist inherently because why this cup cannot be inherent existing phenomena? Why? Because the cup exists dependently. The thing which is depend on causes and condition, the thing which is depend on something else, that means the thing always empty, always lack of independent. If you depend on someone, you are not independent person. If you are a very independent person, you are not depending on others. Therefore, dependent, independent is two contradictories. Therefore, if the cup depends on something, that means the cup is lack of independent, lack of inherence. Therefore, when I ask you, please meditate on emptiness, you need to think on something, some phenomena. There's certainly the phenomena which is perceived to me exists independently. Therefore, the thing is totally empty of inherent existence. That means emptiness means actually all phenomena empty of inherent existence because dependent arising. Why things depend on something? Why things arise depend on something? Because none of the phenomena can exist independently. Why you need to depend on someone? Without someone, I cannot get up. I cannot stand up. Therefore, I need to depend on someone. Once you depend on someone, means you don't have an independent, you don't have a freedom to, stand up yourself. Right? Therefore, please try to understand what does mean emptiness. Empty or what? What is the difference? Is empty, the cup is empty of water, the cup is empty of inherent existence. What the difference is? Right? Okay, next. There's the paragraph next. Scholar who are Buddhist, essentialist, mean below the Pasangika. All the Indian must, the proponent, scholar who are Buddhist, essentialist, may have great training in many topics of learning, but they do not accept the Madhyamaka view. They are very high practitioner, they have a lot of knowledge, they are well-trained person, but they do not accept the Madhyamaka view. And their dispute with the Mahayana is as follow. Right? They cannot accept the Madhyamaka's view. They have they dispute. They have an argument with the Madhyamaka about the Madhyamaka view. How they dispute? If all phenomena are empty, lacking any essential or intrinsic nature, then all of the teaching on second existence and nirvana, bondage, freedom, and so forth are untenable. Right? Please remember this. If all phenomena are empty, if all phenomena lacking any essential If all phenomena are empty of intrinsic nature, then all of the teaching on the second existence, about the samsara and about the nirvana, bondage, freedom, and so forth are untenable. Then you can say, their argument about from the Nagarjuna text, if all this were empty, there would be no arising, no disintegration. It would follow that for you, the Four Noble Truth would not exist. It's argued from the lower school proponent. You can say scholar who Buddhist essentialist, because they believe, things exist essentially. Okay, so tomorrow, I think, so next Sunday, so next Saturday, we can go until the dependent arising. We have two pages. Please, everybody, finish to read. Also, I said many times, yes, the topic, the subject is difficult to understand. There's a few reasons. Reason number one, because our common language and in the language which is used for the emptiness is different. Usually we use the, the general kind of term and language, we easy to understand. When it's explain emptiness, they use different language, so difficult to understand. One is the language. Second, so we have been talking about all the conventional things like bodhicitta, compassion, renunciation, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. We don't talk much about emptiness in the past. Therefore, it's difficult to understand. The most important reason, when we think about emptiness, we felt, I'm going to give up to study emptiness because we don't have enough merit. We don't have enough positive energy, positive virtues. The negative karmas, the negative energies are so powerful. Therefore, so maybe next week you can do a lot of recitation, chanting, only wish to realize emptiness. Pray to Buddha Shakyamuni, pray to Nagarjuna, recite Manjushri mantra, and reflect on the meaning of emptiness. When you reflect, when you make a reflection on emptiness, sometimes you fall into nihilistic view. Still is okay. Once you really fall into nihilistic view, then somehow you will feel, I don't think I can accept, none of the phenomena exists. Then you will come back. You get out from, from the nihilistic view. Then you try to establish thing exists. When you establish, also you can mix together manly existent, ultimately existent. You mix together. Then you use a lot of logics. Then you will notice the meaning of emptiness. I said last class, in order to realize emptiness, you no need to read a lot of books for long hours. You need a lot of reflection. You need a lot of contemplation. The things are on you. Therefore, everybody, can do a lot of recitation, chanting. Also, Tibetan Buddhist Center already make an announcement about the Vesak month. As a Buddhist, the Vesak month is very important. So we need to do a lot of practice, a lot of recitation, a lot of making offerings. The most important, I think, if you could, most of our, vegetarian. If you are not, vegetarian, try to be pure vegetarian for the 1 month, for the Vesak month. Also, so Tibetan Buddhist Center going to offer a lot of lights and offering flower in TBC. Also, Tibetan Buddhist Center going to organize like a prayer chanting in Namgyal Monastery, prayers and chanting in the Manali Monastery, offering light in Bodh Gaya, also I think the Lumbini. So if you contribute for this, activities is good for you. The most important third to be vegetarian for 1 month. If you are not, vegetarian, if you are vegetarian, still you think I want to be more pure vegetarian for the Vesak month. So thank you so much for attending the class. Thank you so much. Always appreciate for attending the Dharma class with me in TBC. Also, whatever you learn from the books, from me, from other master, from your, Dharma brother and sister, please try to practice as much as we can. Because most of are over 50, 55, 60, 65. I don't think we have, many years to go. Our life is, more closer to the death. So look like our one of the leg already on the cremation ground. So should not be lazy, should not be lot of busy with the samsaric things. We have to be, busy with the samsara, like cooking, cleaning, working, making money, taking care of your family, taking care of things. We must, but should not be too busy with the samsaric things. Never be lazy with the dharma. So try to, achieve something in this lifetime. In order to achieve something in this lifetime, based on Lamrim, based on Dharma Buddha teaching, you really need, a lot of study with the practice with the study, practice with the meditation with the studying and practicing. So please, practice Dharma as much as you can and try to be happy yourself. Should not harm anybody. Let other people also be happy. Thank you so much. At the end, we do dedication. So today we talk a lot about emptiness. Due to the study, we have accumulated the merits. The pure merits we have accumulated today. First, we dedicate the merit for becoming Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. In order to become Buddha, we need to accumulate, two kinds of merits, the Samana wisdom and merit. In order to accumulate the two collections, we need to practice the two truth. Therefore, second, we dedicate the merit to able to realize the true truth, which is conventional and ultimate truth. Last, dedicate the merit for all sentient beings, particularly your family, your relatives, your friends. Also, please dedicate the merit to benefit the people, the person, the family who contribute for sustain the Tibetan Buddhist Center. Also, we have a lot of light offering. Also, we have a long list of the people who are sick, who are facing a lot of difficulties. Please pray for them. Please dedicate the merit to benefit for them. Jamba Bhavya Chedara Kempa Nam Kundo Sampa Deyan Dejen Deda Kunje Jeswa Dalo Jenge Wan Deda Damjera Chaze Wadan Jujen Sheba Dan Jesu Yiran Gujen Sowa
Gewa junze da ge je sa pa tam je zo be chang ju Jimbo Gewa di ye yo gun sonama yi she so zo sonama yi she le jung we tamba nye bo to ba sho. The last dedication we just saw in the text, Gewa di hyogun sonam yishe sozojin sonam yishe lejungwe tamba nibo tobar show. Thank you so much. Have a happy Saturday and take care.